Beholder Blissful Sleep is the new DLC for Beholder, the 2016 surprise hit by Warm Alarm Games and Alava Entertainment. It takes place in the same dystopian police state that the main game was set in. The DLC is set before the main game storyline and focuses on Hector Medina, the landlord that was seen being beaten and carried out of the room during the main game's intro. Hector faces euthanasia, the Blissful Sleep program which the government has made mandatory for all people above the age of 85. Hector Medina, though only 64, is believed to be 85 by the ministry in order to set his affairs in order and report to the euthanasia center. With this premise, it's no surprise that the DLC takes place in the same house as the main game and at least to a big extent includes characters from the main game. With both location and characters overlapping, saying more of the same seems more than fair, and anyone who liked Beholder but feels like he could go for seconds will not be disappointed. However, some of the aspects of the game, especially the story aspects, are lacking. The following segment will contain spoilers to the game's story, so I would advise anyone willing to play the DLC to stop watching at this point. The DLC's story suffers from two main problems. One is the story being the prelude to the main game, meaning that the player already knows who lives in the building at the beginning of the main game. If a family like the Simmers has a child but didn't in the main game, the player automatically knows that tragedy will strike this family. The second problem of the DLC story is that the main game story arc was escalating from an oppressive but somewhat sensible or logical place where people could live their lives oppressed but not in immediate danger as long as they followed the rules, to the obscurity of the late game where anyone was basically a target. The rebellion was on the brink of revolution, the atomic bomb might be dropped at any time, and the government was trying to create mind-altering chemicals that turn people into robots. With this story arc came the question of who to trust. Especially in the beginning, some of the citizens seemed to actually be on the government's side. The first quest was solved by telling Rennick what the state wants you to do, so he would help you out of a feeling of duty for his country. The writers of this new story had to find their place in this world before all the events and failed to do so. At the beginning of the game, the player spends more than half an hour talking to all the people in the house, and in extensive dialogues every single inhabitant complains about the current situation, some atrocities that the government committed, and openly reveals that they intend to cheat the euthanasia program. This onslaught of complaints and tragic stories leads to a quick numbing of the player, where tragedy loses the impact the player experienced in the main game. Where the death of a well-established Simmers, who both helped the player at this point, was felt as a tragedy, the death of their daughter in this game feels less tragic, as it just drowns in the long list of terrible things that happen. Here we actually meet another aspect of the game's struggling story. It's helpless in its try to up any emotion. This can be seen through the whole story, be it by dying children or by your boss trying to sleep with married women. The best example for this is actually the very starting premise, where the government basically executing anyone above 85 years of age is not enough, but your main character needs to be falsely accused of being 85 and actually way younger because the main premise apparently isn't scary enough. All in all, it feels like the story tried to outdo and overwhelm the story of the main game in terms of tragedy, but fails to understand that sometimes less can be more. Nonetheless, the game left me satisfied with the overall experience, and for the small price of €4, I can definitely recommend the game to anyone who enjoyed the main game or just liked the works of Orwell and Huxley.